Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is a show where we pick a movie and discuss it every week, just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the World War I drama 1917. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 2019, 1917 was directed by Sam Mendes and stars George McKay, Dean Charles Chapman, and Mark Strong. At the height of the First World War, two young British soldiers must cross enemy territory and deliver a message that will stop a deadly attack on hundreds of soldiers. It is ranked 122 on IMDb's top 250 and has a 4.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Sound Editing, Best Original Score, Best Production Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. It won 3 for Best Sound Mixing, Best Visual Effects, and Best Cinematography. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. We will be discussing plot points, twists, revelations, and more here on the show. We don't want to spoil it for you. I'm pretty sure we both think you should go and watch it. Most of the movies we have on here, the show. But make sure you watch it first, then come back. But stay tuned to the end to find out what movie we're covering next week, because we're not changing genres, but we are changing languages. Alrighty, Kevin. So 1917 was your pick this week.
Correct.
So let's. Why pick it?
It was a good damn movie when I first watched it the first time, and watching it the second time, still a damn good movie. So loved it.
Well, there you go. Easy enough. This is a movie that this is one of the first movies I bought in 4K when I got my Xbox that was capable of playing movies in 4K, and I hadn't seen it. I literally bought it because it was supposed to be a very good looking movie, and I wanted a good looking movie for 4K. And finally watched it a couple of years ago, and I love this movie. I think it's probably my favorite war movie. I think it's up there with Black Hawk Down.
I was going to say of like the newer generation of war movies, I feel like it is good. Is one of my favorite as well. Black Hawk Down, I would put like in the middle 2000s movies, and then you have like Saving Private Ryan for like the 90s and stuff. So
sure, I think that Saving Private Ryan is a great film. I think that this one though, I love World War One. I think World War II is kind of boring.
Okay.
I'm sorry. World War I is very much more brutal and fascinating politically. So I really enjoy it. And so that's why I was really drawn to this movie. But we should probably talk about the elephant in the room first.
Okay.
This movie looks like it's shot in one shot.
And it feels that way.
Yes.
I love one shots in movies. And this movie is just, it feels like a continuation of when it starts to ends. And it feels like, it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like you are the camera person.
And it's one of those weird things, though. And I think that some people argue that a movie's camera has to feel like it's in the environment realistically, right? To help ground a movie. And I think this movie is in the environment realistically. I just don't know. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like, it feels like it's
obstructing
it's more documenting, not so much kind of getting in the way, or like it just brings you into the environment in a different way, which is really fascinating. That's why it won the Oscar. Mr. Roger Deakins is a master at what he does. But it's absolutely gorgeous, like the way that they're able to do this whole thing in seemingly one take, even though it's several takes. Because it's impossible to do this all in one take. But like the way that it's cut, the way that you can barely tell. There's only one point in the movie where I think you can really tell, and that's when the main character falls asleep, or like it's in like the wreckage or whatever. But like other than that, no real time jumps. Like everything feels natural in its progression of time.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like you get lost in this movie too. You're on an adventure, but no time, like you said, no time has gone away. It feels like you're on the same day, or is it the next day? Because he doesn't really know as well. We don't know how long time has been passing until we get to the end. But it's just so, again, we're going to say it. It looks so fucking good. Like, that's what it is. Like, I didn't know Like, I know some dark scenes, like dark scenery and stuff like that, could be very menacing and very warlike. You know how they have like the fire in the background, and then you can see the foreground with the person laying with blood on them. But the scene where he's running in the open field when it's like daylight, like it was shot perfectly. I don't know if you know this funny story about this movie though. Do you know it?
Well, you're gonna have to give me more details than that.
I'm gonna give you more details because I'll tell you it. The when he falls over, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
The plus or what
extra.
do they call it? Extra accidentally ran into him, but it made it that much better because it looked he frantically got up and
It's more
started.
real.
Yeah, and made it more real. And
Yeah.
when the I think the actor, the main actor, I forget his name. I'm so sorry. The main
George
actor,
McKay, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
saw that on film. The director actually, I think, wanted to do it again, and he goes, "No, it looks good that way." I feel like because if everything is happening, it's
Yeah,
more
it's
grounded.
chaos.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly, and it's so cool.
yeah, like you would probably trip too if you're
Oh
that
yeah.
desperate to get to the command to get that whole thing to stop. Yeah,
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
Um, and it is truly fantastic. And I think what's also nice because you mentioned something that's really important is that this movie is easy to follow.
Yes.
You don't really get lost in it, and I think that that's something major because by doing this all in one take, you're really you're staying with the characters the whole time.
Hmm. You're
Like
not.
you're
You're not.
not
And I
having to
love that
struggle at all.
that decision of you were with him and that's who you're going to be with until the end of the journey because they could have taken that route like, oh, we're going to cut it to the general now or the commander, and he's going to be talking with his people in there and then cut back to him.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would take away from our journey with the main character of
Mhm.
getting that message to the commander, and
Yeah.
it was a great decision to make.
Yeah. And I think it's smart because it's sure it's more simple, but it's more effective. Like,
Hmm.
you know, I like so many other war movies, like Saving Private Ryan, as good as it is, has too many side characters with all these fleshed out stories, and obviously you do care about them. And I'm
Hmm.
just making a point here, but like this is just the two of them,
Yeah.
and I mean, you know, every major side character is only in the film for like a minute.
Yeah. And so
Like,
you don't have to remember their names. You know, like, oh, he went to him for this information. Now he has to go to somebody else. That's it.
yeah,
That's all you need to know. And that's how it is in war. Well, I've never been to war, so, and hopefully never will. But that's what it
yeah,
feels
you're
like.
too old now. You can't get drafted.
But that's what I feel like it would be. It would be like frantic. It'd be like, no, go talk to this guy. I'm doing something. Go talk to this guy, and he just getting passed down pretty much. Um, but yeah, it's just it feels like we've been saying very grounded and very realistic, or more so.
Yeah, I mean, there's, excuse me, there are
Mhm.
definitely some scenes where it doesn't feel the most realistic, right?
Mm-mm.
Like the airplane going down just happens to be right where they're standing.
Yeah,
Like, sure, there's this
weird
whole wide
coincidence.
open battlefield, but it makes for a great scene of tension.
Hmm.
So, and the sound design of that sequence and what it does narratively for the film, because that's how we get to the point where it's just one of them.
Hmm.
It's
Exactly.
absolutely fantastic.
And
Um,
a big event had to happen to lose one of the main characters, and
yes.
I like how I'm sometimes it's okay to lose a main character in
Oh
movies.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
it makes it actually, I feel, a little bit better because there's a loss in this of he might not make it because
He's not coming
I
home.
yeah, because I was like, oh, they're both gonna make it there. Like I'm trying to plot it out in my head as I'm watching it, and then he
Yeah.
dies, and I'm like, okay, I have
You're like,
no clue where
what?
this is. Yeah, I'm like, I have no clue where this is going now, and that's what I love.
Yeah. It's it's fantastic.
Hmm.
And the way that they tell that story, just the two of them, and then just the one of them. And there's enough character, but like you care about the characters. And
Oh yeah.
when you lose, it's gonna drive me nuts if I don't say the character's name. When you lose Blake is the character that dies.
Hmm.
It genuinely hurts. Like like losing him is a hard thing.
Because he
Um,
he was the comrade that
yeah,
you started the movie with. You got to meet him, you got to know him. Not a lot of things you got to know about him, but you got enough to care about him. And then when that stuff happens, you're like, shit, is our main character even gonna go through with all of this? Because
yeah,
he could have turned back. He could have been like, oh, it's way too bad. I'm not gonna do it. But his character was like, no, I have to get this message because it's way too important. So, and
yeah,
that also crossed my mind, is like, will he continue on this story, or will he just accept defeat?
yeah. And he continues on because like that call. Not to mention a different war thing, but like
Hmm.
the Call of Duty is loud. Like you have to, like you're doing this for your brothers. You're doing it for all these people who are depending on you to get that message.
Hmm.
Um, so it's very much makes sense, and it's a fantastic, um, you know, it's a fantastic example of storytelling in a war movie like this, where like I feel like you don't see a lot of World War I movies,
No.
and which is a fucking travesty because it's so much more ripe for tense like horror and like suspense and like all that than World War II is, because of how much more brutal it was. This was before like the Geneva Convention. Like they were using chemical weapons. There was like trench
Hmm.
warfare, which you see all that in this movie.
Yep, you do.
Like the scene in the bunker that they're crawling through,
Hmm.
absolutely horrifying when that grenade goes off.
Yep.
Um, and then again, just the end of the movie. This whole movie is just so gorgeous, and it's such a thriller of a movie too.
Hmm.
Like it is a war film, it's a drama film, but it's also a thriller. Like if your blood is not pumping
Yeah,
in this movie.
on the edge of your seat when stuff happens, that like what you said, the grenade inside of the bunker, you're like, oh shit. Or the
Mhm.
plane coming down, you're like, oh shit. And even like this, sometimes there is silence in this movie, but it's used perfectly, I feel like. And because it leaves you with that suspense in that, okay, so it's silent, what's gonna happen?
Mhm.
Because it's a war, we know something's gonna happen, but we don't know until we watch the full movie.
Yeah. Um, Also, I do want to point out that the music for this movie, I feel like it's not something we typically talk about in the actual meat of the video too much,
Hmm.
but the score for this movie is fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, if it's incorporated into the movie and you don't realize it because you're engaged into the movie, it's fantastic. That's why I always think when you bring it up a lot of the time, the musical score and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even recognize it because it fits so well to the movie. I didn't have to be like, well, that was a weird choice of music in it.
Hmm.
It's like it was very it in the background, but still like giving you that um ambient vibe pretty much
Yeah,
is, and it gives you to the foreground and gives you to that story that it's like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And I again didn't realize it because of how good it was.
yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, Kevin, we've kind of talked about everything about this movie. I mean, this one of those films like there's not a whole lot of meaning in this movie. It's one of those kind of movies that it really just puts you in the moment, and that's
Hmm.
where the majority of its kind of excellence comes from, and is putting you in that moment. And
Hmm.
so let's go ahead and get our scores out here. It was your pick this week, so why don't you go ahead and go first?
Yeah, so it was my pick. I did want to add, I would love to see this in history class as like a permission slip signed movie, because for World War I, because we had to watch Saving Private Ryan when I was in history class.
Hmm.
So this would be a very good one for World War I, just to give again a visual perspective of what was happening. But I gave this movie a 95 out of 100. Again, it's beautifully shot. Like you said, the music is fantastic because it it is intertwined with everything that is happening, and I love how it looks like a oneer every single time that you watch it. And that's why I love this movie so much. And so that's why I give it a high score.
There you go. I think that this movie shows that there is beauty in travesty,
Hmm.
and it's this incredible technical achievement that also is incredibly emotional as well. Like they do a very good job of that. It's one of the best war films I've ever seen. It's in my top 5 for sure. On a good day, it's number 1. So with that, I give it a
Hmm.
97 out of 100, which is a 4.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Hmm.
So the question now falls to you. What do you think of 1917? We'd love to hear your comments down in the description or comment section, not description. You can't put anything in there. Down in the comment section down below. But just, someone might be a German spy, so don't go making people angry.
Hmm.
But next week, we'll be covering a World War II epic of a little bit of a different sort, Come and See. Which I am super excited about. And make sure to watch it before next week, though, so you're not spoiled.
Hmm.
And that's about it. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you follow us, like us, subscribe, all of that, because we do have our live stream that goes live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this show, Movie Club, comes out every Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, super excited for next week. So until next time, make sure to keep those eyes on the screen.